teaching. My question has to do with the three reasons that you gave that are usually given for the unconditional support that the United States gives to Israel. And in those three, you mentioned the strategic interest for the United States. Now, as we know, at least since Franklin Roosevelt thought through the era of decolonization, the United States always promoted in words decolonization, self-determination, etc. And then it always those ideals ran into the issue of national strategic considerations. And so my question, more specifically, is to what extent you or other people who are doing this important work have been able to concretize what strategic interest really Israel constitutes to the United States, whether it's in the context of the 60s or the 80s or even today. I mean, is that just an empty slogan against which all the Americans just have to bow, or there are concrete ways of showing whether there are, in fact, strategic interests which are vital, or whether it's just an empty consideration, a political slogan to carry on that kind of support, which, as you said, is based also on other considerations. So that's my question. Thank you.
I think probably the best place to start to answer your question about the importance of Israel as a strategic asset for the United States is to go back to the creation of Israel in 1948 and ask the question, how did American policymakers think about Israel at the time? I think there is no question that the key individuals in the Truman administration who were thinking about the strategic repercussions of recognizing Israel, almost to a person, told Truman the United States should not recognize Israel. That it is not in America's interest to create a Jewish state in the middle of a sea of Arabs. That included people like Secretary of State George Marshall, who was hardly an anti-Semite. There were two sets of reasons, I believe, that explain why the United States recognized Israel at the time. One was the legacy of the Holocaust and the fact that many Americans and many Europeans thought that given what had just happened in Europe, it made eminently good sense to create a Jewish homeland. I think that was not a terribly important factor, but it was an important factor. The main reason that President Truman recognized Israel was domestic politics. It was basically the lobby putting great pressure on him during 1948, which was a campaign year, to recognize the state of Israel. And I believe he very reluctantly agreed to recognize Israel, and did it, again, in part for domestic political reasons and in part for moral reasons. But I think there were no good strategic reasons at the time for recognizing Israel, and in fact, strategic calculations point in the direction of not recognizing Israel. To take this a step further, as almost all of you know, during the Truman years, during the Eisenhower years, and even during most of the Kennedy years, the United States did not have a close strategic relationship with Israel. Most people don't realize this, but we did not start giving substantial aid to Israel until 1967. And then it was after the 1973 war that aid skyrocketed. Okay? So during those early years, we kept Israel at a distance. And we kept it at a distance because we understood that there was significant cost from a strategic perspective in getting too close to Israel. But that all began to change, of course, after 1967. But anyway, the argument that I would make, if I had another half hour to embellish this, is that even during the Cold War, it is difficult to make the case. You can do it, but it's difficult to make the case that Israel was a strategic asset. It certainly wasn't at the beginning of the Cold War, and after the Cold War ended, it was not a strategic asset. The best case that can be made for Israel, leaving aside domestic politics, the best case that can be made for Israel is the moral case. And it's the argument that given the history of anti-Semitism, it is a positively good thing that there is a Jewish state, given what has happened in the past.